Let me check if I have some things. Hopefully this one's going to be very short. Um, hopefully, well, I still have the Imperishable Flames banner on there. I like to deal with any and every situation. I love my worldview to be challenged. I love my positions to be challenged. I love it when that happens because there's no way you can lose. If you end up on the right side, mashallah, you're on the side of truth. If you end up on the wrong side, you've still won because now you're closer to the truth than you were before. Having said that, there was a recent Young Turks video in which Anna Kasparian made a big hullabaloo about a senator or something like that who said a 10-year-old who is raped should be forced to carry the child. Now, a lot of the issue relative to the abortion conversation is surrounded on language. And the pro-choice, the supposed pro-choice cabal has done a very, very good job at manipulating language so that people who, and please don't get offended by this, people who only think at the surface level are easily influenced. Dear listener, let's think this through. A 10-year-old gets pregnant. So what needs to happen, because that 10-year-old is pregnant, is we should kill the child inside the child. That's the issue. Now, me personally, you guys know that I'm, quote, radically pro-life. So I'm against death in all of its forms. But if I was going to allow for that principle to be compromised, it would be compromised with those people. People who hurt children. If you're one of those people and the government or whoever takes your life, I'm all right with that. I'm completely fine with that. However, let's think this through rationally. I asked one of my friends, and I'm not going to name the guy. I'm not trying to blast anybody. I asked one of my friends, I said, what is the logical reason for killing this baby? Just give me the logical reason. I know we're supposed to say, oh, a 10-year-old is pregnant. We're supposed to react emotionally on that. Even though we know what's happening to babies in the womb. They're getting their arms torn off, their legs torn off, their stomach is eviscerated, their skull is crushed, till a white substance exits the mother's cervix, which was the baby's brains, and then the abortionist then reconstructs the musculoskeletal remains of the child in a dish to make sure that there are no other limbs in the mom so she doesn't get into sepsis. Notice I said mom. You don't stop being a mom when your child dies. I had a very good friend who was in church with us, and it was Mother's Day, and she'd had a miscarriage. I pulled Shorty aside and I said, "Happy Mother's Day." And she busted out crying because even though she was a single girl with no kids, she had been a mother, and she had lost that. So I wanted to recognize her on that day, and I told her Happy Mother's Day, and it was a pretty emotional moment for both of us, obviously. So when we're talking about abortion, let's just be real about what's happening. We are killing a human being, and just because just like with a miscarriage, you were a mom. That's just a fact. Now, let's think logically about this situation. I asked my friend, I said, give me the logical reason why we should kill this child. He said, come on, Vin. Their life is in danger. Obviously. I said, oh, okay, well, then get me that data. Get me the data that says that this child's, that being pregnant at that age is so deleterious as to cause us to kill the child within her. It was about 15, 20 minutes. He got me nothing. Eventually, bless God, he got me a New York Times article. So what I want to do is I want to read that New York Times article, that very unbiased, sourced New York Times article, because I do think it would be instructive for people to understand what's going on. So the name of the article, and oh, Lord. Notice at the very top, dear listener, it says global health. What pregnancy and childbirth do to the bodies of young girls. An Ohio 10-year-old's recent abortion has generated fierce debate. Doctors in countries where pregnancy is common in adolescence say the toll of childbirth on young bodies is brutal. Couple things to point out right from the gate. Ohio is not Bangladesh. How many of you, if your daughter or mother or yourself were deathly ill, and I said, you've got an opportunity to go to a hospital in Bangladesh or a hospital in Boston? 10 out of 10 of you would choose the hospital in Boston. Why? Because we know that third world countries, the last thing they're worried about is healthcare. No disrespect to them, but they do not have very good healthcare. Now, I know the WHO study that this article is based on. You know what's interesting? Thousands of girls in that age bracket died due to abortions. So they say, oh, you know, all around the world. Of course, they don't go to America. They don't source these. They don't do America. They don't do Canada. They don't do the UK. They don't do first world countries for obvious reasons. Okay? That's number one. Okay. So right out the gate, you're seeing this New York Times article is telling you right out front. This we're talking globally here. We're not talking about what's most directly related to Americans, obviously, is the fact that we're not a third world country. Okay. Now let me bring something else to you guys. This right here. Now I've already done a video on this, so I'll repost it if you guys want to see the video. But I'm about to show you guys something, and I think it'll be instructive. I really do. And look, I think all of us are doing our best. We're trying to learn that type of thing, and I mean, shit gets complicated when you live in a society that routinely dehumanizes a certain group of people. I understand why people would be in some confusion, for sure. So I'm going to show you guys the actual real study. It's called Lancet.org. They're an extremely you have to pay for a subscription to be part of that, which is fine. It's a labor of love for me. I'm good with it. But I want to show you guys some information because, look, this is stuff that I didn't know, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie to you guys. There's a lot of shit on here that I did not know, and that's why it's important for me to hear as many criticisms as possible. Of course, these people try to report like 10-year-olds get pregnant on a daily basis in America, and that's obviously not true. But I'm not going to use that to dismiss it. I want to deal with every single argument known to man because I want to make sure that I'm on the side of truth, and I'm sure that you guys are in the same position. Now, let's look at the Lancet case study, okay? Because I do think it's important for people to understand that even though we may think we know something, it's always good to check out the facts. I think you would agree with that. Okay. So I want to get you guys the article itself so that you can look at it yourself, because I'm gonna do it too. Now look, what I'm giving you here, let me go and show you guys this so that you understand what sources I'm using, because I don't like to use faulty sources. You guys know that. Here's PubMed. Okay. PubMed, by the way, is part of the National Library of Medicine. If you Google it, you'll see it'll have a .org there. Okay, that means .gov. Let me show you when I put it up there. So you'll see it's a .gov. That means it's not the New York Times, it's not the New York Post, it's the United States of America. Okay, so let me just show you guys the proof that it was .gov. I know you guys don't think I'm lying, but here we are. Look, .gov. Okay, so what I'm quoting to you is not the New York Times. It's not Ben Shapiro. This is the United States of America, who has already killed 63 million children in abortion. Okay, so let me read to you the findings of the article, because I do think you'll find it interesting. Here we go. That's gone. Here we go. The aggregated data shows a J-shaped curve for the age distribution of maternal mortality with a slightly increased risk of mortality in adolescence compared with women aged 20 to 25 years old. Maternal mortality ratio 260, uncertainty between 100 and 410. Maternal deaths per 100,000 live births for all 144 countries combined. Keep in mind, what I'm about to read you and what I just read you was a conglomeration of countries. It was damn near the United Nations, but it wasn't America. It wasn't Canada. There were no first world countries in this specific article. Now watch what happens. The highest risk in women older than 30 years. That means that the 10-year-old girl who was pregnant had a better shot at making it through than my wife, because she's over 30 years old. That's just a fact. This is in third world countries, by the way. I'm going to say this again. Look what it says. The highest risk is in women older than 30 years. So, should we then kill every child of a 31-year-old? Because 2024 is the Goldilocks zone. That woman is 30. So should we kill them all? Obviously, that doesn't make any sense. This 10-year-old thing is supposed to gin up our emotions, which it should, while simultaneously it's designed to destroy your emotions from the baby in the womb. The numbers, though, tell us a different story. The numbers say that my wife, and it was a nightmare, that last delivery, is in better shape, is in worse shape than this girl. We continue. Analysis for individual countries showed substantial heterogeneity. Means they pretty much were all the same. Some showed a clear J-shaped curve, whereas in other adolescents had a slightly lower maternal mortality ratio than women in their 30s. I have to read that again. Some showed a clear J-shaped curve, whereas in other adolescents had a slightly lower maternal mortality ratio than women in their early 20s. Remember I said the Goldilocks zone was between 20 and 24. When they did this case study of the 144 countries, there were instances in which the adolescents, and they're counting that from 10 to 18, 10 to 19, did a little bit better than 20 to 24 in the Goldilocks zone. It's a .gov website. I don't know what to tell you guys. We continue. No obvious groupings were apparent in terms of economic development, demographic characteristics, or geographical region for countries with these different age patterns. The reason they're saying that is to say there are no extenuating factors that are contributing to these numbers. These are just the raw numbers that we have anticipated loopholes in. Okay. Here is the conclusion of that. Now, keep in mind, look, it says right there, funded by the WHO. Here's the conclusion. Our findings suggest that the excess mortality risk to adolescent mothers might be less than previously believed. And in most countries, the adolescent mortality ratio is low compared with women older than their 30s. They're older than 30 years. I have to read this again. Our findings suggest that the excess mortality risk to adolescent mothers might be less than previously believed. And in most countries, the adolescent maternal mortality ratio is low compared with women older than their 30s. Wow. In third world countries, by the way. 144 third world countries. However, these findings should not divert focus away from efforts to reduce adolescent pregnancies, which are central to the motion of women's educational, social, and economic development. We all agree with that. We all agree that if a girl gets anytime a girl or a woman gets violated, which is, I'm not going to touch on that other issue because I don't want it to overshadow this issue. But obviously, if a 10-year-old is pregnant, a 12-year-old is pregnant, obviously, by definition, a rape has happened, right? So crime has already taken place. Somebody's selfishness and lack of compassion drove them to do that act. And now what society is saying is the solution to that problem ultimately is not to put the man away in prison for the rest of his life. Look at the sexual assault laws in America. It's ridiculous. No, the solution is to destroy the child that's within her. One of the things that was fascinating me about the Ohio abortion case, I didn't hear any indication about whether or not that child wanted to keep the baby. Mm-hmm. There was none of that. It was just, hey, we gotta kill her. There's no reason to even talk. We gotta kill this kid. Go ahead.
There's a lot of times where women will say something happened to them, but there's no evidence that it did.
100%.
And it gets thrown to the wayside and nothing gets done about it.
100%.
But in this situation, obviously the child is evidence that there was a rape.
Correct.
And so it's very, very telling that why is everybody in such a rush to get rid of the child
Correct.
that proves that this happened,
Correct.
rather than saying, let's give this, especially knowing that a 10-year-old is at a greater risk of death or injury because of the abortion rather than going through with the pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's very telling what's going on in the minds of these adults.
Yeah, and I said in my other video, this argument to me proves that people who support abortion know that it's horrible.
Yeah.
Because they never bring out the actual case of Susie who got pregnant at a party and doesn't want to screw with her educational aspirations. That is the typical young lady who gets an abortion. But instead of justifying Susie, you have to go with an edge case that happens twice a year. And then even when you go to that edge case, the data actually goes in the reverse. But I think people understand that abortion is so horrible that the only way that you can use to justify it is to say things like life of the mother or this girl's 10. Come on. That's all they got. And they want us to ignore the 85 to 99% of the other abortions that happen every single day that have nothing to do with the situation. But be that as it may, let's say it was common. It's not, but let's say it was common. Dear listener, in a third world country, think about this for a minute. In a third world country, that Priyanka over there has a better chance than if my wife grew up there. So I understand you hear a 10-year-old gets pregnant, you think she's going to die, all these, her hips, all this other stuff. I get it. And as a man with daughters, I really, really, really get it. But what we have to figure out is, does the data agree with the narrative? And I'm sorry, guys, the data does not agree with the narrative. I'll put the Lancet article down there. I'll put the WHO article out down there. We'll put it on there so you guys can see for yourself. But killing a child is never the solution. And the
fact that we're willing to have 2 kids die over this.
Yeah.
Is unbelievably selfish.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. Knowing that article, and I think that there's lots of people that don't know that information, but now that information is out there and you know it, like, you're responsible to do what's necessary to prevent that narrative from continuing, to make it so that way people feel like we should allow abortions to continue because we want to protect 10-year-olds. Knowing that information, that's the exact opposite, that we should be making sure that abortions do not continue, to save the lives of the 10-year-olds, to hold the assaulters accountable, and to let these children live. My gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously agree. One of them said, oh, you forgot to mention they were unsafe abortions. I'm like, bro, literally the point of the procedure is to kill someone. Yeah. That's like saying healthy war. There's no such thing as a safe abortion. Like, what if I called a hitman to go, hit my wife? And I'm gonna say that, like, it's just the logic with this stuff is hard to deal with, but that's okay. Okay, so in summary, guys, Vin and Sori are radically pro-life, but if anybody should die in the case of a sexual assault, it's the guy that's raping. Especially, we're talking about little kids here. That's number one. That's plank number one. Plank number two is, because this happened, Anna Kasparian and a bunch of other people who support child killing are going to use this edge case in order to get everybody in their feelings so as to not look logically. Mm-hmm. Here is a .gov website. I'm just going to read it again real quick because I saw some people show up and didn't catch all of it. So here we go. I'm going to start from here. Actually, no, let me start from the top. The aggregated data show a J-shaped curve for the age distribution of maternal mortality with a slightly increased risk of mortality in adolescence compared with women aged 20 to 24. 20 to 24 is the Goldilocks zone for having children. Okay, so what they're saying is there's a slightly increased risk of mortality for women that get pregnant between, I think it's 10 and 19. Okay. The highest risk is in women older than 30 years. That's Sori. Sori was older than 30 years when we had our last kid.
For all three.
So,
Reza, and
so for new people, an adolescent has a better shot of surviving pregnancy
than I did for my last 3 pregnancies.
Than a 30-year-old. Yeah, actually, it was the last 3 pregnancies. Mm-hmm. We should have killed all 3 of those too. Analysis for individual countries showed substantial heterogeneity. Some showed a clear J-shaped curve, whereas others in adolescents had a slightly lower maternal mortality ratio than women in their early 20s. So there are some instances, because they did 144 countries. None of them were in America, by the way. In some instances, even in a third world country, an adolescent does better in pregnancy than a 30-year-old. I mean, I'm sorry, not a 30-year-old, a 20 to 24-year-old, which is the Goldilocks zone for being pregnant. By the way, the source I'm quoting from is a .gov source. It's not the New York Times. It's not Wikipedia. This is a .gov source. Here we go. We already read that one. I just want to show you guys real quick. See right there? .gov. And our government is obviously radically pro-abortion. Okay? All right, now watch this. Our findings suggest that the excess mortality risk to adolescent mothers might be less than previously believed. And in most countries, the adolescent maternal mortality ratio is low compared with women older than 30 years. However, these findings should not divert focus away from efforts to reduce adolescent pregnancy, which are central to the promotion of women's educational, social, and economic development. Okay? So we just went over it twice for you guys. It's a horrible situation. If somebody needs to die, kill the rapist is the message.
Yeah.
I do not want to trivialize the gravity of this situation. This story is one of the stories I had to retract because it came out, it's 10 years old, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, where's the evidence, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't come out and explicitly say in the video it was a lie. But I said enough to where I was like, you know what? I need to shoot a retraction video on this. Because even though I didn't come out and say it, a person listening to me under my influence could probably jump to the conclusion that that's what I was saying. So I went and shot another video and said, whoa, guys, I was wrong about that. And we spent about 45 minutes on it. The point of me saying that is to simply say, the reason I'm so honest about these things and so quick to make a, correction if I make a mistake is because I believe in the rightness of my cause.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I believe that this cause can stand up to any and all criticism. And so I believe that the arc of the future tends toward justice. I believe in that. So that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. I don't need to lie. I don't need to be dishonest. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to go and correct myself as quickly and in as detailed fashion as possible.
And for heaven's sakes, why would we not? Especially when children's lives are on the line.
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
Correct. Okay? So, and it's just important from an integrity situation, but really for what we're trying to accomplish with this pro-life stuff.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get done on the state level. I didn't think that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned. Okay. I think that's it, guys. Thank you very much for participating in Middle America. I appreciate it. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media.